ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. This is part of NAIA-SIDA Divisional Day. So we want to thank our partners at Presto Sports for being here. What we wanted to make sure that we did was give ample time for this specific event. We have a very crunch timeline at NAIA-SIDA this year. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had a chance to hear from Presto directly, ask questions and all of that. So we have a few questions that we've got queued up from people that had asked them prior to the meeting. And I think we only had like 2. So we're going to ask those questions and then we'll open up the floor for more as we go along. But with that said, I want to welcome Marilyn Cox here. Marilyn is the president of Presto Sports. Marilyn is going to be leading us through here. Josh Fowler is also with us. Josh is one of their lead developers and really just has been a huge help to us all of getting a lot of things handled. So Marilyn, I'm going to let you introduce your team. You're going to do a lot better job of it than I will. And then we'll go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Perfect. And Brad, if you wouldn't mind, I would have a deck that I was going to walk through. I know everybody loves to walk through PowerPoint decks. I promise I won't show any complex charts or eye charts or anything like that, but did want to have a little bit of like a visual guide as we talked through. As I mentioned, or as Brad mentioned, I do have some fantastic folks from the Presto Sports team here on today's call. So yes, Josh Fowler oversees all of our development work. Chris Nowak is on and he oversees all of our product and our product strategy. And then we also have a couple of folks from our product team as well on. So Zaid Hussein is on. Zaid, some of you might be familiar with, leads all of our efforts around stats and web and all of the great work happening there. And then Chris Sapp is also on, and Chris has been a part of our organization for quite a while and recently stepped in to lead our streaming strategy with our product. So you'll be hearing from some of these folks throughout. And as we get started, and here we go, I'm going to do the typical, hopefully you guys can see my screen. If not, throw something up in chat and let me know. But I wanted to walk you all through just some of the updates to Presto. And probably one of the biggest updates is the fact that a lot of you are seeing me for the first time. So I recently stepped into the role of president of Presto Sports back at the beginning of March when Keith Womack stepped away. I actually have been a part of the Presto Sports organization just in a different capacity for the better part of about 3.5 years. So the holding company called Club Essential Holdings, which acquired Presto Sports a little over 4 years ago, I was their chief marketing officer. So I know the Presto solutions. I've become familiar with the market over the years. And this is a fantastic opportunity. It has been to dive in and understand the business in a much deeper way. And as you'll see here on this slide, a lot of these spaces are going to look pretty new to you all. So as I mentioned, I talked about Josh, and Josh is on the phone. Kayla Mount, who hopefully a lot of you have had the opportunity to interact with, and if you haven't, you will be with her and her team here in the coming months. Kayla and Chris both actually joined us when we acquired Superfan about a little less than a year ago. And Kayla oversees everything related to sales and client success. And she's got a fantastic team that is working to make sure that all of your needs are met and you have exactly what you need as well. And then Ryan Backus, who's not on the call. Ryan joined us right around the same time that I started back in March, and he's our controller. And so he's really working to help simplify the billing process for you all. So I know one of the pieces of feedback we've received is because Presto Sports has gone through a lot of these acquisitions over the last couple of years, some of you are still getting invoices from different Presto companies. So you might be getting an invoice from Presto Sports. You might have received one from Superfan. You might have received one from Score Shots. These are all part of the Presto Sports family now, and we're really looking to consolidate and simplify billing for you moving forward. And Ryan is the guy that is leading that charge. So let's talk about 2020 and 2021 and the progress that's been made, issues, solutions, enhancements. It's been a challenge, I know, for this industry, this market in particular. And because of that, it's forced and required a lot of changes on our end. So we wanted to make sure that we spent some time covering off on what you're experiencing. And I wanted to take at least a few minutes to talk about what I'm learning and what I've heard. So about 100 days into this role is where I am right now. But back at the beginning of April, about 30 days in, I had the opportunity to attend the NAIA convention and had an opportunity to speak with many of you, some of the athletic directors at your organization as well. You'll see here, these are some of my notes that I was taking. I had an opportunity to get a lot of constructive feedback. And it's brutal. I mean, in all honesty, there's a lot of work we need to do as an organization. And that's the biggest thing that I took away from this is there is a lot that feedback that you guys have provided, things that we need to do to improve on our end. Some of it, as you'll see here, we kind of have like a burn down list of things that we are covering off on with the NAIA leadership on a weekly basis. Some of those have been completed. Some of them are going to continue to be ongoing. Some of them have started and some of them have not. And so these are things that I want to make sure you all are aware that we are taking your feedback. We are building it into our day-to-day work to make sure that we're addressing your issues, whether that's what you need from us in terms of product, what you need from us in terms of support. And believe me, that is an area that I have heard plenty about. In fact, you might have noticed on the previous slide where I showed our leadership team, we have two positions right now, our support management lead and our implementation management lead. Those have been open roles for about a month where we realize we need to take the organization in a different direction. Our new support manager actually starts on Monday. So very, very excited to welcome him. I'm sure he'll be reaching out to many of you, or you all will have an opportunity to speak with him here over the coming months. It's always difficult to make organizational changes, but this is an area in support and implementation both where we recognize we have some serious work to do. A lot of that I think can be attributed to the fact that we have not pivoted and adjusted a lot of our organizational process based on the needs and the demand of the industry. We haven't grown and changed based on the acquisitions that we've made. So the way that our support and implementation organizations are currently structured is pretty much the same as it was when Stretch and Presto merged about 4 years ago. So we haven't done a good job of continuing to keep up with that evolution and addressing your needs. And so with Renee stepping in, that's one of the first things that he's going to be doing is evaluating present day process, where we're receiving feedback and how we can better operationalize and make things more efficient. So you're not dealing with these long delays, that you're getting the response that you need, that you are getting funneled to the correct person in a timely manner based on what your current need is. So please know that this is 100% a priority for us and something that we are going to really be putting a lot of effort into here in the coming weeks, in the coming months. So I do want to take a pause and then have Josh jump in and have him talk about what we're doing to also build and grow and enhance our solutions to make sure that they meet the needs of you and your department.
Hello, everyone. As I said, my name is Josh Fowler. I'm the Director of Engineering here at Presto. I took over, I think a lot of you probably knew Alejandro. Took his place in November and been here working hard ever since. I know the slide says team and sports updates, but I wanted to take a minute and discuss something that's probably already on everybody's mind, and that's product stability. We've we know we've had an issue with that for the last, 6 months. And I wanted to kind of go into a little bit more detail about that on, what was causing it, where we're at, what we've done already, and what we're doing going forward. So I'm going to start with the 504s that you had been getting for weeks on end, months ago. So that was actually caused by traffic. For the last 2 years, we've had, COVID, the world changed. Games weren't played, nobody was going outside. Traffic was very low. This winter and spring was the first season that we've actually had games going on across the board. We did not account for that traffic. We kind of looked at historical data and tried to adjust based on that. And I don't think anybody could have guessed exactly how much traffic we would have gotten with all these people wanting to get back outside. I tell you, sports became a huge popular thing as soon as COVID was, everybody said that you can go out back outside. But on that, the 504s were caused because so much traffic was causing some of the servers to crash. I have worked hard on analyzing that traffic, adjusting our scaling, and you probably noticed over the last couple months that you probably don't really see the 504s anymore. Just some quick numbers. We run stable at around 16 servers. When we started the season, the spring season, we only had 12 running. Now I have a 25% buffer on that. I run constant. I'm on my low end at 20 servers on the extra large size, but I have scaling tiers done all the way up to 50 servers. So you shouldn't see those 504s due to traffic anymore. We have it adjusted all the way up to Google numbers at this point. Next is our live stats lag and release delays. This has been an ongoing problem, and we're finding more and more issues in the system that's causing these problems. It's not just one thing. Now, we've made adjustments and did some development to help stop some of this. One of the examples is bulk actions. So we found out that if someone goes to delete thousands of files in our system, it's going to cause lag. It's going to cause delays in the database, which are causing these live stats and release delays, things like that. Recent release, we changed the way bulk deletes work. We put limits on it. We're putting limits on other bulk actions. And that are, I guess, temporary or short-term solution to this is to put limits on some of these actions and things that are making lags in the system. We've already started having discussions to rebuild this bulk action system, and we're going to start work on that very soon, just so we can go ahead and get that done to where we don't have these problems anymore. But that's just one example. There's other things that have caused it, and one of them is actually just the sheer amount of players that are in the NAIA. Their stats, the NAIA stats, across the board with baseball, over 250 schools, thousands and thousands of players. When a game ends, it has to calculate all those stats, player rankings. It has to rank every single one of those players from 1 to 9,000. So it just takes time, and in those cascading bulk actions of recalculating stats, it causes lag. So this is something we've been having heavy discussions on the last 5-6 months, not only internally, but we've been talking to Brad and Paige about them too on our calls about things that we've been doing, things that we've done, and what the future looks like. I will go a little bit more into detail once we get into the future slides on things that we're going to be doing very soon that'll help that. But rest assured, we're working hard to get rid of every single one of those issues that are causing it. So, and you could probably already see that we've helped a lot the last few weeks, months, to where you don't get them as often. All right, now I'll actually get back to what the slide says. Just a couple things that we've done over the last, 6 months, year, that we've been working on back and forth with what the NAIA has wanted. First, the basketball net efficiency stats. You can already see that it's on the main stat composite page, and it's ready to be applied to any team sites that they want it on. So it's up to the school if they decide they want it on there, and then we can put it on there. Football, you had an issue back with the Heart of America conference with the 5 10-yard penalty options. You saw we were pretty quick on implementing that and getting that turned around. Women's lacrosse was a big one, where we had to change the configuration to support halves and quarters. That was a pretty big change. As well as now team stats. You can now download any team stat in CSV or Excel formats. So that's going to help a lot. That was one of the requests from the NAIA. All right, NAIA help. We did quite a few major updates to that. Now you're able to search for a program by various majors and what your programs offer. Now, in all this, the biggest thing has been user management. I don't know in the past if you've heard that we're making the next generation of our CMS product. One of the ones we've recently released is user management. With that, there's a ton of things you can do. Not only can now, I believe probably most of the people on this call are admins in our user management system, to where you can now add users to the system, assign RPIs to them without ever contacting support. You no longer have to worry about putting in a support ticket, hearing back when you hear back on adding a user. So if you're at a game on Saturday and you need to add a user, you can do it. Now, a user is able to request an RPI right there from the system. If they say, hey, I need RPI access for this, it'll send a notification to the admin, and then they can assign it right there, easy as that. And even put expiration times on it. It's like, okay, well, they're only going to be starting the game for the weekend. I only want to give them RPI access for the weekend, and it expires as soon as the weekend's over. All right, some of the major beta releases we've had in the past year and a half. First, our tournament creator. So that was our first client-facing CMS2 product, which is our new generation. As you go through and create those tournaments now, you'll see the new layout that we're going to be going across the board. And you will also see that in the user management if you log in there. Presto Sync. That's for, if you're not familiar with it, that's for basically sending the XML on the fly into our system or downloading it onto your desktop as the game's going on and gets static. That's for usage into your scoreboards, things like that. And we've had beta launches for our flag football and tennis Presto Stats, the new generation of Presto Stats, which I'll go a little bit more into that later. But I just wanted to point it out now that those were pretty big beta launches also.
Thanks, Josh. So let's circle back for a minute and talk about support services and education, because hands down, this is the area where I feel like I'm hearing the most feedback right now. In fact, I know for some folks, you probably received an NPS survey in the last 24 hours, and the feedback that I received across the board was related to this. It was related to our support system and our support operations. So what you're seeing here on the slide right now is our current status. And it's no wonder that people are confused and frustrated. I mean, we've got well over a dozen different channels and paths that you can come into when you have a support issue. On top of that, what tends to happen is, I know when you've got an issue, you reach out, you try one channel, and when you don't get a timely response, you're trying the different channels, which then creates, you know, triplicate, sometimes quadruple the same ticket for the same person. And then it just kind of blows up, right, our support system because, again, of the way that we're structured and organized. So as I mentioned, we've got our new support manager starting next week. And one of the first things he's going to be looking at is, how do we start simplifying this and making this much more intuitive for you, and allowing us to address your issues faster. So again, just like at the convention where people were very forthcoming with their feedback, this is an area where, you know, please feel free to reach out to me directly via email. And I want to hear what your experience has been. I want to understand where your frustration has been. I certainly know for many of you, it is the lag, the time that it takes to get resolution, if sometimes you even receive confirmation or feedback on your support ticket. It would also be helpful to understand how difficult it is for you to navigate, or if you're clear on where you need to go when you have an issue or when you have a specific challenge. So this is something that I welcome any and all feedback as we move forward. Another area where we've, I believe, made things more complicated than it needs to be is related to our education and support resources. So this, again, is an example of where I think the intent was to try to create options for you, our clients, and to help self-educate. Where it's fallen short is we use a lot of like internal jargon. So you might not know, do I need to look at Presto Awards or StretchCast, or what's Presto Pay, or when do I look at Stretch Live versus StretchCast? And so there's a lot of, I think, confusion, and we don't do a good job of helping you navigate when you have an issue. And I'll say this in two use cases. So the first is, we need to be educating you, the client, before you have a problem. So I think a lot of times what happens in support situations is the goal is to try to help you solve your problem, so you're not waiting on the support team. The problem in that instance is, as a consumer myself, when I have a problem, I need it solved right now. It's not the time for me to sit there and like read through documentation or watch a video on how to do something. So one of the things, again, that we're going to be working on with our support team is figuring out how to take this knowledge base that we have right now, which is showing 9 different places that you can navigate. There are more than 9, as a matter of fact, where we have information, articles, how-tos, and consolidate it in a much more meaningful way, and try to build and design this system so that it's addressing your use case versus like a product name. And again, trying to be more proactive in providing this information to you and providing training to you in advance of you actually having a problem. And our hope then is that that will also cut down on your need to rely on the support organization when you do run into issues. So this is going to be an area in which we continue to work and simplify and better operationalize. So with that, let's take a moment, and we want to address product roadmap and future developments. So a question that I've had a lot over the last couple of months is really, what is the direction that Presto Sports is moving? Because it started as Presto Sports, which was this website and stats and camps platform that then merged with Stretch Live, and we had Stretch Live and StretchCast, and then we went out and bought Score Shots, which does social graphics, and then we went out and we acquired Superfan, which has you know, everything from digital ticketing and mobile apps and a fundraising platform. And it was like, really, what is it that you're trying to build here? And so what we're really working towards is creating a sports platform that supports you and your athletic organization and your fans, so that whether you're on-prem at an event or you don't have the ability to attend in person, your fan doesn't, that they're still getting the same type of experience. So no matter where they are, you're driving this type of fan engagement. and really doing that in a way that it's helping you as an organization recruit, it's helping you better engage your alumni, it's helping you better fund your programs. We certainly recognize coming out of COVID, that has been a huge hindrance, is how do you better fund your programs and how do you create an experience that's definitely inclusive for those that can be on-prem and off-prem. And then going back to how we help fund the program, looking at these different solutions that Presto Sports has and figuring out how we can help you monetize those. So again, you are taking in more revenue and helping offset the cost of your technology investments. So with that, let's take a moment. And again, I'm going to have Josh walk through some of the focus and where we're looking at building and improving our solutions as we move forward.
Sure. All right, I'm going to start with user management. As I said, big undertaking, you now have access to adding users, setting permissions, things like that. And our immediate future for user management is to be able to edit the ability to, or I guess, disallow people from changing rosters even though they have RPI access. So we know sometimes it's like, okay, you just want somebody to go in, stat a game, things like that, but they shouldn't have access to editing any of the rosters. Just in general, adding different permissions and different parts of the system to allow or disallow the people from doing certain things. Next is the stat stages. So as I was going in earlier, there are multiple fail points on why there's delay and lag. One of them I briefly mentioned about how there's over 250 schools and there's a ton of players. Well, recalculating those stats every time a game ends is very heavy on the system. And it was doing it as a whole. It would try to just take all 250 schools, every player, and do it all at once. So what we've done with baseball the last few months is we recreated those stat pages and broke them up into smaller portions, basically by conference. And now it recalculates those scores and those stats by conference and then as a whole. So now we are breaking it up into smaller sections so it doesn't cause all that delay and lag. Now, with this, we've already done it with baseball. Now we've started plans to start with softball and all the other sports. And then going forward, all those calculations, every time a season starts, we won't have these delay problems with that issue. All right, single game high reports. We're going to continue work on that. We do have it for a couple sports, but that's we want to make sure to get them in for all. CMS2, as I said, our next generation of CMS. Right now, we've got the tournament creator, the user management. We're going to continue work on that to make a more user-friendly software. I can tell you, everyone has that first expression whenever they log into CMS, and I'm going to be honest, it's outdated. So we are looking to recreate that and have a better user experience. All right, Presto Shots. If you have Presto Shots, we're looking to automate some of that to where you will be able to put your schedule in and it'll automatically morning of, or however you said it, could be the day before, morning of, will automatically post the game day image to your social media, Facebook, Twitter, and you never have to touch it. You just approve it once at the beginning of the season, and it just automatically posts through the season. Core infrastructure work. This is where we're going to continue to work on those delays and lags to make a more reliable system. As I said, we're in the process now of making a system to handle these bulk actions and break them up into smaller portions. And that's what it comes down to. That's 99% of the problems. So going forward over the next few months, that's going to be one of our main missions, is to get it more reliable. That way, come fall, when we get into those sports, we won't have any of these issues. Okay, I know some of you were beta clients for us for our new Presto stats, our next generation. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to show you a few screenshots. So we start with flag football being, easy. We launched that at mid-March. Got some feedback on that, in which we'll take that feedback into phase 2 coming in September after we finish football. Tennis, we just launched that beta late May. We've already got some feedback on that, on how that was going. We haven't exactly planned when we're going to start that development for phase 2 based on the feedback, but it is on the board to do it, after football and the adjustments to flag football. Football beta is planned to launch late August, so it's looking good. We're on a steady pace on this software, and it was a big initiative for the NAIA to do this. But it's really turning out to be great software. If you want to go ahead and change the slide, this is it. As you can see, it's a pretty simplified UI. We brought in a UX specialist to go through these and make these screens for us. I'm sure every single person here had that first impression of entering stats on Presto Stats or any of those softwares, and you look at it and you go, what is this? So we took that and we decided to simplify it and brought in a UX specialist and been going at it ever since. This right here is flag football. You can see that the bar at the top shows where the ball is. And as the drives on the right, you can see the drive history. As those go, you'll see that ball move along the field. It's pretty nice, very simplified, very easy on the eyes, and quick to the touch. It's all touchscreen. Now you can still use your keys for all those people that are used to hitting your hotkeys, but you can do it all by touch now. If you want to go to the next slide. All right. Oh, missed one. All right. Again here, same layout. You can see your penalties and how they're listed out. There's a whole array of them. We tried to make sure all of them were in this time. All right, you can go to the next one. And then here's our after game report, basically the summary of the game. You can see each drive as you go down, box score, individual stats. So this will be nice. You'll be able to print it at the end of the game if you want to, so you can have a play-by-play. All right, next slide. All right, now getting into tennis. Again, simple layout, very nice. And it's just as simple as hitting add single match, selecting them from a drop down, putting in the scores, and you're done. If you want to go to the next. And then just as easy going back and editing if you need to. So it's try to simplify things. All right, next on our streaming platform, we have a big announcement, and some of you could have been on the call. We had a webinar last month, I believe it was, about Presto Stream Studio, going through a demo and how it works and everything. That is set to release early August. So that's our release date. We already have some clients that are beta testing it, and everything's been going good so far. So that's going to replace our StretchCast software that some of you probably use now.
And we do have the webinar from last month recorded. So if you were not able to attend and you'd like a link to view that, just let myself or Brad know, and we can certainly send that out.
Okay. All right, I'm going to take a break for a minute and let Chris Nowak take over. He's our head of product. He's going to go over the Presto mobile side.
Thanks, Josh. Like you said, my name is Chris Nowak. I'm the director of product here. It came over from Superfan, which some of you might recognize. Excuse me. for our mobile applications. So we've actually brought all of that over, and over the last several months, we've done some really heavy integrations with Presto. So I'm going to run through a couple of those for you now. As you can see here, we have a unparalleled flexibility and customization. So we can put your name, your colors, your sponsors and everything right on here in the home screen. We do offer container and standalone apps. And so that means you can have one just for the NAIA and all of your schools inside of it, or you can have a standalone application. So where each school has its own application where it's searchable in the App Store and all that. And all of this is completely automated with Presto. So that means every event, every change, every description, every image that you put into Presto CMS, that's going to come over automatically into the application. There's nothing else that you have to do to manage it if you don't want to. However, we can do rewards and check-ins to use as engagement, and that is a little bit extra that you might have to manage by putting in some of the rewards and running reports and things like that. We can also turn the registration on and off. So again, if you're familiar with the older Superfan product, it does require registration, but now with our Presto integration, you can turn that off and everything can be informational only. And so that's really helpful if you're trying to create just a fan tool where they can see scores, highlights, streaming, and I'll go through some of the other features. I won't go through all of the features of the Superfan product that is now the Presto mobile product because there's just so much. So I'm just going to go through some of the direct integrations that we have for Presto. So if you can go to the next slide there, Marilyn. So we have things like we can integrate the embeddable player. So for streaming, all of your ticketing, we can do alerts, so like targeted notifications. We pull in all of the schedule, all of the team and player stats, rosters, and we have several different versions of what those can look like, so that you can kind of pick and customize exactly what you want that to look like, and it matches all of your branding and colors. And again, all of that pulls directly from Presto. There's nothing else that you need to do. Once it's set up, any changes that you make in Presto automatically flow down into the application. So if you do just want that mobile application that has all the information that you have with Presto, you don't have to, after you set it up, you don't have to do anything else with it. It's going to automatically have all of that information. If you can go to the last one. We also have just done Gamecast and streaming. So just launched for baseball and football. So if you're already doing stats, this automatically will show up in your events. It's a beautiful way to show off your game, your event, without the user having to go to the website. So this is automatically integrated if you're using stats. We launched it for football sports, but it does allow you an additional way to get in front of all of your fans. And so you can split that up. You can ask for different types of information, whether they're a fan or a student or a parent, and be able to send targeted notifications based on that. You can also do it based on actions, which events they've viewed, which tickets they've purchased, rewards they've unlocked, things like that. Also allows integration with some of our other products, such as ticketing and Presto Raise, which is crowdfunding. And so it allows integration to that, and it's just more distribution. And then reporting, so you can pull all the people, what they're looking at, what kind of actions they're taking, all that type of information. We log everything. So all of that is at your fingertips. And again, all of that is completely customizable and completely integrated with Presto in the back end. So, you know, as you're doing anything, creating events, changing rosters, all of that will be automatically updated for the application. Again, there's so much that we do in the mobile applications. If you're not familiar with it, please let us know, and we can get you set up on a demo. These are just some of the ways that we're integrating, because I don't want to spend, the whole 2 hours talking about mobile, though I certainly could. So if you're not familiar with it, please let us know, and we'll be happy to walk you through the full product. But there's a lot of really exciting stuff coming through mobile. We're really looking at it as another, avenue of distribution, whether that's through streaming, stats, or just informational from your website. All of that we're looking to include in the mobile application, so everyone can take your brand and your college with them on the go.
So a lot of what we've talked about in the future path of Presto Sports is really meant to address what we're looking at as 4 needs. So we want to help ignite your fan base. We want to help really elevate your brand, and how you define brand these days is certainly evolving. It's not just the school or the program. I mean, it's how you position your student athletes as well. We certainly want to help you fund your program. And we recognize that part of that need to fund your program is stemming from the fact that you're resource constrained. So you're really trying to figure out how you can scale the resources that you have. I will say one of the things that I've become acutely aware of in the last 100 days is, especially with you as sports information directors, what you are ultimately responsible for, and what your day-to-day looks like. And given the fact that you're being asked to do more and more, requires more automation, and technology for you needs to be something that helps and not hinders. So these are all things that we're really making sure we're working towards and building towards. And so this is how we are looking at taking all of this technology that Josh and Chris have just talked through, and really kind of weaving this together in a meaningful way. So, allowing you to do things like pulling together your streaming on multiple channels so you can be where your fans are, really creating more interaction and things that are more snackable. When we look at how people even work with video these days, long form video is great. People watching a game from end to end is something that will always exist. But I mean, I think as you're all aware, kind of going back to that idea of snackable video content, how can you take this and create things that are shorter, that are those like really electric highlight reels that allow you to publish it on different channels. And so we're really working to make sure that the technology is allowing you to create the content that you need to really achieve what you're trying to do as an organization. Because in a lot of ways, I mean, you're publishers. You are publishers of content. So it's not just how you capture it, but it's also how you edit, create, and then ultimately distribute it. And then how you can take this different technology that you're investing in and really start to see that return on investment. I think in some ways, athletic programs have always been hesitant to think about themselves as businesses, because it kind of is like a dirty word. But in a lot of ways, I mean, you really are. And you're asking a lot of the organization to make investments in things like technology. So how can you start to offset that cost and start to receive that return? And that can be done through a myriad of ways, whether it's through digital ticketing, whether it's through the fundraising platform, whether it's where you publish, and that could be on your website, it could be on a mobile app, it could be leveraging things like advertising on websites and streaming. You've got all of these channels in which you can really start to recoup some of that investment. And we want to make sure that Presto Sports Technology is helping you do that, and allowing you to really kind of monetize the technology that you have in place as well. So these are all things that we're really working to make sure we continue to build and create so that it better serves you and your program. And then lastly, and I think this is great because this is a lot of what Josh and Chris have talked about, which is how do you automate and scale a lot of this so that you're not having to log into multiple systems, you're not having to manage this in different places. really pulling all of this together. And that's where, you know, they've spent a lot of time and effort too, and figuring out how to make your jobs simpler. And as we've talked to, and we'll continue to recognize, address, and really work towards improving, we want Presto Sports technology to be something that makes your jobs and your lives easier. And we recognize that that has been a challenge over the last couple of years. And so we are 100% committed to making sure that where we're putting our effort and our investment is in doing just that. So with that, you know, Brad, we'll open it up to Q&A. We want to make sure that everybody on the call has a chance to ask questions. We will do our best to answer questions live on the call. If there's something that we need to pull more information together on, or do some research on, and circle back with individuals, we're certainly willing to do that as well. But, you know, again, happy to answer as many questions as possible right now.
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm going to start with some of the questions that were sent in beforehand.
Okay.
So Lucas, I'm going to get to your question here in just a moment. So there's a question about the Presto CMS, where an update to CMS has caused major setbacks with the website, especially on mobile. I think this is really more directed toward what Josh was talking about with the slow times. So that will also affect the stories being posted live and that stuff, right?
Yes. So the releases and the photos, you know, how there's been at times 20-minute delays, 30-minute delays. We've worked to really minimize those, but we're working even more to eliminate those delays. So it's gotten a lot better in the last month or so, but you might see them here and there until we get a long-term solution in. But we do have some solutions in place, some more coming, and some more we're working on.
Perfect. So now I do want to state that if you did ask a question, if it's already been responded to within the presentation, I'm not going to pose that question. So I'm going to move past some of these. A lot of the questions we're having to deal with customer service. A lot of them were having to do with 504 errors and things like that. So I'm moving past some of those. What efforts are being made to improve communication between the SIDs and Presto?
It's a great question. Well, my hope is that this is a start. So, you know, it's great to do annual calls. I'd certainly like to figure out how to stay better connected. We do have, I will say, opportunities in which we are doing more regular communication that you might not be aware of. So for example, we do have a monthly e-newsletter that goes out, and that monthly e-newsletter covers everything from product updates to changes in service and support, answers to frequently asked questions. If you are not currently opted into that newsletter, please let us know. We'll get you opted in. That way you will receive those updates. One of the key areas too, where we're certainly working on improving communications with the SIDs. So being proactive in things like newsletters and updates and stuff is important, but where I think we've definitely fallen short in years past is when there is maybe, like, as we've talked about, a system performance issue. And we have a tool. So another area where you can opt in to receive communications is our status update page. So if we have an issue, if we have a challenge, we do post, hey, we recognize that in this instance, maybe there's a 504 error. We're working on it. We'll update the page when the issue's been resolved and we know what happens. That serves a purpose and it is good. The problem is not everyone is aware of it. So for those of you that are on the call right now, you know, there's 96 of us, it looks like, on. Hopefully all of you are opted in. If you're not, highly recommend it. But again, you're making up a percentage of the NAIA audience we're talking about here. So that's something that we recognize. We need to be more proactive in making notifications, letting you know, not just what's happened, but why it has happened and what we're doing to fix it. So that's, I think, an area where we've fallen short is we've gone, yeah, we know we've got an issue. oh, it's been fixed. But we're not providing insight into, okay, here's what's caused the issue. Here's what we're doing to fix it moving forward, because my hope is that that helps instill confidence in the solutions and the products and the team that you have here. So I would say there are kind of a few different areas. Certainly, if you're not opted in, let me know. We want to opt you into our newsletter. We want to make sure you're opted into our status update page. So if we do have performance issues. And then the third piece of it is right now an area that we're working on, which is how do we go about being more proactive when we do have performance issues to make you aware of it.
Perfect. All right, the next question we've got is on the status of those that are still using an SID help website. What is the timeline on that?
Yeah, so I have a document drafted, and in fact, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. That way I can pull it up. And this is something that we will proactively communicate. Sorry. One moment. Okay, so I am going to, how do I want to share this? Yeah, I'll share my screen. Give me a second. You guys will get to see my Google Doc, which is fine. Okay. Again, hopefully you're seeing the right screen right now. We have had, as I understand it, a lot of confusion over what is happening with the SID help websites. So what we've done is we have drafted basically an FAQ communication, and we will send this out. But it is addressing, first of all, why do I need to convert my SID help website to the Presto Sports Web CMS? So this is something that is ultimately being driven by AWS. Okay, so that is forcing us, because they'll no longer support the PHP that the SID CMS is currently built on. Okay, this is the big question, right? When do I need to convert my SID help website to the Presto Sports Web CMS? We are wanting to have anyone on the SID help website converted by April 1st, 2023, because AWS is going to stop supporting it at the end of April. So our goal is to get you guys converted by April 1st. Where I'm noticing we've had confusion over timing is for those of you that are currently going through contract renewal. So what do I do if my website contract expires before the sunsetting of my SID help site? So we want you to talk to our client success team. So Kayla Mount, who I showed in the slide at the very beginning, this is one of her teams that she manages. We want to talk to you because we want to help you structure your contract extension for your SID help site that would then expire on April 1, and then have your renewal structured on the Presto Web CMS. So that's the date that I'll continue to kind of put in front of you. April 1st is what we're shooting for. So what's involved with converting the SID website to Presto Sports Web CMS? It's very low effort on your end. So the good news is we're not talking about these big redesigns. We're not talking about you guys having to export data. This really is something that on our end, we are owning. We are asking that you give us about a month advance notice in order to get you converted. So that, as you're thinking ahead and planning ahead, we're looking at about a month to get you built into our implementation timeframe in order to have all of this done and make sure that your site is as you want it before things expire at the end of April in 2023. And then lastly, are there additional benefits that you can gain? This kind of ties into some of the roadmap stuff that we were talking about. So AWS is forcing us right now, right, to say we can't support the SID site CMS anymore, but there are also additional benefits. And this is where we are making our investments, both people, resources, and financially, in terms of we're putting it towards making a better, improved Presto CMS type of experience, and allowing for that type of integration and creating more of that automated scaled type of experience that we've just talked to. Lastly, so how does this impact the NAIA National SID Help website? And this is another area where I think there has been some confusion. So just to be clear, that site will not be impacted by the April 1st, 2023 conversion date. So we're currently working with the NAIA office to plan for an April 2024 conversion date. So this really is your individual school, April 1, that's the date that we're working towards. Again, I will send this so that everyone has it and you have these dates in front of you.
And I will just chime in on that one as far as some of the functions that are on there. We are going through a large scale review and switch to different systems. So what is currently on NAI Help, some of you understand that system. Many of you probably have never seen it. NAI Help is our member management tool. It's not SID Help, so you understand that. That is where a lot of our functions are being put into a new system. With that, some of those systems that were on SID Help will probably transition into that new system. That could be anything from postseason rosters to different forms having to do with preseason questionnaires. But we're going to give you more information on that as you need it. At this point, nothing changes. So for this year, everything will remain in SID Help as before. Question, and this has been a kind of a common question through some of the chat as well, in terms of the flag football stats. So not many people were actually able to get into there and use it. It was announced that it was ready to go, and then when people tried to log in, they couldn't get in. And then we tried to get them in. There were a lot of user management issues with that. So I think the main question revolves around, when are people actually going to be able to get in and see it and start testing it and use it?
Yeah, we did have some user permission issues when we first launched it for sure. But to be honest, if they have permissions right now, they can go in and play with it. You know, as long as they have that RPI access, they can set up an event and go in and play with it right now.
Yeah, that's great. So Josh, will that Launch Presto stats button be in there, or do they have to log into the stats next? How does that work?
They can use that Launch Presto stats button. Yeah, as long as they have the right permissions set, that will go over into the new stats program. Okay.
So I will ask that if you are an SID or if you are a flag football school, go set up a test event. Right now, I will be honest, Josh, I just set up a test event between Thomas and Kansas Wesleyan, and I don't see a Launch Presto stats button. So, let's.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say it could be there's also a drop down that needs to be selected. So we'll what I can do is I can get with you maybe tomorrow or something, and we can go through the plan if you want to, or I can send you a list on how to get it set up. If that works.
Yeah, go ahead and send me a list, and then I want to make sure we get that communicated to everybody next year, or for probably next week.
Okay, sounds good.
That'd be great. All right. Let's see. That was a big chunk of some of these. We have some questions in terms of the NAIA awards platform, in terms of conference awards flowing into the national award, and that's something that Josh, you, Marilyn, and I have talked a lot about in terms of making that process easier. So in a sport where we do have conference award winners, can operate seamlessly with those that don't have conference award winners, so people don't have to nominate twice. So do you just want to share a brief update on what we've talked about with that?
You want to take that one, Josh?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we went through we're more assessing it right now. We're in the planning stages of everything. I know we're also taking into account everything you emailed the other day, as far as trying to go through it, analyze each line, and then plan it out. So we don't have a set plan at the moment, but once we do, we'll bring it up, on the weekly call, and then we can go from there. I think one of the best things we need to do is probably set up a good meeting on what your expectations are too. I know you put it in the email, but I think a verbal meeting of expectations is probably a big thing. That way we can lay out that plan and go forward.
So more to come on that. That's something that we have not forgotten about. That's something that we're moving toward. We definitely want to make sure that that's a system that operates a little bit easier for you. So
Yeah,
we're looking at that, and I will have an update for you guys on that probably within the next few months. While I pull up some other questions, Mike Safford, you want to go ahead and unmute? I know you had a question.
There we go. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yep.
Being one of the old guys in this group, one of the things that I've been very diligent about, and actually will be presenting at CoSIDA, is talking about record keeping and historical databases. Has there been any talk with Presto creating a ability to create a historical database for archiving stats? Stat Crew has that, and that's what I've used for years. But with Stat Crew going out of business and ending their product line, trying to figure the easiest way to do so. Just didn't know if that was anything that was on your guys' radar, or, it's basically the ability for us to create databases, going back to, the 1920s if need be. Thank you.
So we've had a lot of discussion just as far as like just moving the data from SID Help to Presto right now, just even getting that data. But especially if you have XMLs and things like that, you're welcome to go back and put all those stats in the system historically, even if you want to go back to the 1920s. Now, not to say we're going to have the same rules and the same fields that they use in the 20s, but there's no reason why you can't go in now and say, hey, I want to create the year 2000, 2001 season and import those stats if you have them. I think as you go back, XML didn't really start coming around till late 80s, early 90s. So past that, it would probably be manual, but most of those got standardized. Actually, I take that back. I think most of those got standardized probably mid to late 90s on the XMLs with Genius. But yeah, you're welcome to go in now and start putting those in. But we don't have anything particular as far as like a standalone database. We just have the website to where you can set up those seasons and put in the stats.
So there's no way to have a career database for, say, hey, most home runs hit, and it's, pulling everything from 1960 to today.
There is not currently. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to put like, most rushing yards or something like that for all time. No, it would just be by season. We have season highs, but not all-time highs.
Thank you. I guess I got to keep my Windows 7 computer forever.
Yeah, right.
I will
well,
address.
I was going to say, not necessarily forever. I mean, we might make changes to the system where we can do that. We're taking a lot of suggestions for our next generation CMS. CMS 2 is going to have a lot better layouts, a lot better system. It's going to run more efficiently. In fact, that's our main long-term goal for getting rid of this lag and delay, is because that system reads the database completely different from our current system. So that's not to say that we might have the resources, or I should say the hardware resources, to be able to support all time once we switch over to that. But that's more of a long-term goal.
I will say, just for those of you that know, we still have information in DAC stats, and now we've got information in Presto. We have contracted a company to come in and take all that data from DAC stats, put it into a database that will be visible for everyone. So I've actually seen some mock-ups of it, and they're actually finalizing some of that data right now. I think what they're currently working on is just matching up Presto data and some of those players to data there. And then we're still working through the acquisition of the Presto data in a easily adjustable fashion. So that's one of the things we're working on currently. All right, the next question has to do with live stats view on Presto Mobile. Will that be how the interface looks next year for the live stats, or will the live stats, and Billy, I believe you were referencing primetime, will primetime look the same, or will it look like Presto Mobile?
We're currently reviewing all of primetime and looking at a plan to update that interface. I don't have a specific timeline on that. We probably look at fall sports first if we do, but that is certainly on our list that we're looking at, but I don't have a definitive timeline for that. But yeah, I would definitely be on the lookout for some updates for primetime for sure.
So for next year, everything will look the same as we know currently today.
More than likely.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Going forward, it may be different, but
yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. All right, let's see. There's a question about Presto Golf. If that is in some sort of a plan in the future.
Well, it is a plan, but we're not in the planning stage on that yet. There's some big competitors in the golf world as far as stats. So it would be really seeing what they do right and seeing what they do wrong and going forward. But we have talked about golf many times, especially recently with the new stats program. But we are not even in the planning stage on that yet.
Okay. Josh, question about download of XML season stats. Now, I know that's something you've been working on, and I know you didn't necessarily reference that during the presentation, but that is, you have a lot of that finalized, and there were some issues with some of it, but where are we with that?
Yeah, so, as I mentioned, any bulk action is causing issues. Downloading or basically calculating all those season stats into one XML is one of those bulk issues. So it's one of those things we've been trying to figure out a way. And part of that is in this new bulk system that we're going to try to design, is that's going to fix that issue to where you'll click it to download it, and it may not be available immediately, but it'll say, hey, we'll email you when it's ready to download and send you a download link. Something like that. Yeah, that's, I don't have an ETA on that yet, but yes, that's in the plans, and we're working on that now.
Next question is one of our favorites, Josh and Zaid, about baseball roster size. You guys, who wants to take this one? We talk about the, just so you guys know, we're laughing because we talk about this a lot. We talk about this almost.
We do talk about this a lot. I'm going to tell you, baseball is, I went to a baseball game 2 nights ago. Love baseball. But man, tracking stats for baseball is a pain. I'm sure most of you know this. And especially on a player basis. So when we display those rosters, there's a lot of stats that come with that. So we have to limit that roster size just so it doesn't cause issues with loading. And that's what it comes down to. We are looking at other options. Once we make that into a new CMS2 component, we can probably show more, or even have a show more option to where it loads. But that's the plan. Right now, unfortunately, there is a size issue, but it's one of those things we're working towards with the new CMS2 products.
That's great. And just so you guys know, the CMS2 products that we're really pushing to get done immediately, baseball is going to take a little bit of a back seat. And here's why. We want to make sure football gets into the new CMS2, which will include all of the updates that you guys have been asking for. I want to thank Tommy Chasnoff. I don't know if he's on here, but Tommy has been very detailed in keeping all of the things that we've been seeing. He's been looking on the web and seeing what you guys have been saying, and we put it all into one document. So all of this stuff, like continuum lateral stuff, is all going into the new CMS2 product. The other one that we've actually prioritized above the baseball piece is volleyball. After conversations with Presto, and I do want to make it very clear, once we went through the entire width and breadth of this, it was not us asking for a brand new product. It was Josh and Zaid saying we have to move this into 2.0 so we can get it to function correctly. So it's not a matter of ignoring baseball, but we need to make sure we triage the things that are most necessary. And hearing from your feedback, football and volleyball are the two big ones that we want to make sure that we can see edits and all that stuff. So that's been a big push. So I just wanted to explain that to everybody. Question about.
I'm sorry. I did have one thing to add with the roster size. We did add in additional capabilities to be it with for like statuses: injured, inactive, protected. So you can move those out of the list and only select active. So that might help a little bit too if you want to just show active or something like that.
Yeah. There was a question about the historical stat database, moving stuff over from DAC stats. Really, the question is more who has to handle that transition. The NAI is handling that. So you guys don't have to do anything. If we need any additional information from you or you to do something specifically, we will let you know. But currently, no, you will not need to do anything on that level. Let's see, some questions about that. Moving down the list, those seem to be some big ones. Here's a question about best practice on streaming. What's the best practice for streaming a doubleheader so they will be on different downloads? Should I create two separate events? So that would be my recommendation, is to create two separate events. And when that event is over, I would go into your login and hit where it says test end event. Just go hit end event. That will make sure that there's a clear cut between both of your games. Next question, stats, has to do with stats. I've never had to request an RPI, but where can I find my own? And then how do you request RPI access? I will take the RPI access piece. You now have access to log into NAIStats.prestosports.com in the admin section. And you can go to the manage users piece and go assign yourself whatever RPI access you need. So you are all, if you're the head SID, you have admin access. So we've given that to one person at each institution. So if you had 2 or 3 or 4 people listed as your head SID, I reached out to you and we took the person that you told us to. So you should all have access to that right now. If you don't, if for some reason it's not working, you don't see manage users, please email Josh or Zaid, let them know immediately. Or if there's a better person, let me know.
Yeah,
the other part,
definitely email me. Yeah.
Okay. And the other part is where can they find their own RPI code or a list of RPIs?
So you can do it in 2 places. You can actually see it in user management. You can go in and say add RPI and you'll see a list of all of them. Or you can go into legacy. I might want to, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. Yeah, I know it's under account. And then you go to, I know if you go to your profile, that's where you request them. Hold on one second. Zaid may actually, hold on a second. I don't know if Zaid's on, if he might be able to answer a little bit better.
Yeah, in Legacy, you guys can go through the account tab and view my profile, and it will list out your teams for you.
Yeah, I thought it was in the profile. Yeah, and then that's where you can request them too. So as a user. So as an admin, you can assign them to yourself, and as a user, you can request it, to the admin.
Perfect. All right, a specific question on football stats. Having a pass breakup on an interception in football that was not available last year. Wanted to see if that can be an added option or if that was in the plans.
Is that like a tip and then a breakup, or a tip and then an interception, or I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand particular
Yeah,
use
so
case.
if there was a pass breakup, because there's a stat, if someone was able to break up that pass and there was still an interception, you should be able to put both of those stats in the same play.
Okay, absolutely, makes sense. We will have that absolutely considered for the new platform, and we'll try to get it in the legacy platform for fall.
Great. All right. Let's see. So there was another question about flag football. So Michelle, that is coming. We will make sure that you all have access to it. Again, that was there was no one that was able to actually use it consistently throughout last season. So don't think that anyone was left out of that. We were still working through some things. So let's see. Will the football beta be similar to the flag football beta screenshot we saw earlier?
Yeah, with a lot more options.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that is the CMS2 version.
Yeah.
So that's what all of the new platforms are going to start looking like. So you guys know. All right. So question about tournaments. So when people see tournaments, they assume, and especially in this group, tournament stats. And we've talked a lot about that as well. The ability to have stats for a specific date range and teams. Can you guys get an update on that?
Yeah, I can grab this one. So we've got it slated in the roadmap. The first launch of tournaments was really just creating and grouping events together and being able to add sponsors. We definitely have that on the roadmap, and it's something that will probably begin towards the end of this year.
Go Bills.
Bills Mafia.
Oh, well, realize my mic was on.
Let's see.
Great.
Does RPI access now grant Presto stats access? It seemed like those two were different functions last year.
So you have to have RPI access, and you have to go into your permissions and select Presto stats. Yeah, so in the user management, there's now a permission section, and you'll have to also select Presto stats on the user. You'll actually see a couple now. There'll be Presto shots, Presto stats, depending on what your score is.
Next question is, will Presto stats, and this is something we've talked about in a few different instances, will it be able to autofill winning records for keeper records, pitchers in baseball and softball? I know we've talked about home runs in baseball and taking that from the network.
You broke up a little bit there. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, of course. Will Presto stats be able to autofill winning records for keeper records, pitchers in baseball and softball? We've talked about home runs in the past, things like that.
Yeah, that's part of the plan. Yeah.
So that is on the project roadmap, guys. It's not. So when we have more information on that, we'll give that to you, but it is part of the roadmap.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, when we say we have plans, sometimes it may not even be this year. It's just it's on the storyboard. It's just we haven't got to it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So that kind of filters into the next question in terms of being able to get season stats reports, like a pregame report. That's something we've talked about. I know a lot of people are familiar who've used StatCrew with a cap file. But since we have a network database of all those stats, in order to have a pregame report of here's this person who's going to start, and then here's their batting average, things like that. And it pulls that from the network. And we've talked about that. I didn't know if there were any updates to that.
I actually do not have any updates on that myself right now. We haven't been able to come back to that and have a discussion about it yet. Yeah.
All right. A lot more questions about the historical stats. We've addressed that. So a question about if there can be a generic link so that when someone hosts like a tournament, an opening round or something like that, they can have one link and not wait until they create games to create new shortcut links. I'm assuming that is for live stats links.
Yeah. So those links actually get built on the fly. We can't have like a static. They're all dynamic. We can't have a static link for it. That's something we haven't really planned for or discussed or anything. But yeah, all those get made by the system individually. So we wouldn't be able to put a static link on that.
One thing that I would think might help, guys, is if we can get instructions out to everyone on how to, within NAI stats, because they will be admins, to create a custom schedule, a custom network schedule that they can restrict dates on. That's what we do for national championships. So if you do something like that, then you could probably use that static link in order to send people to that schedule that will have your live stats and your video links. So that might be a solution there. Next question, will tennis be able to be used for beach volleyball? Definitely another conversation we've had.
So the infrastructure on all the stats platforms is pretty similar. I think given the nature of both sports, a lot of it will probably be repurposed from a logic perspective. But I think it's going to be a lot easier to build beach volleyball in the new platform than it would, say, a completely new sport, like, I don't know, ice hockey or something.
So just so everyone understands, I think a lot of people are used to being able to utilize like Stat Crew at tennis, and then there was a toggle to be able to switch it to beach volleyball. Beach volleyball is going to be its own standalone product, but using the functionality that we already have with tennis will make that a lot easier. So that is coming. It's in the project roadmap for sure. So stay tuned on that. A few things to get through before that. This is a big question and one that I've seen a lot of. Marilyn, this may be something that you may want to just address again with several people, maybe an email, about a price point for prime time next year. Obviously, it was free this year, and then next year in perpetuity, it will be free for SID help, CMS clients, Presto CMS clients. But what is the price point if you are a non-Presto owned web user?
It's a great question. I don't know, but I'll get an answer for you. Yeah.
I will go back through emails that I've got from Keith and see if I can find that and put that into the chat.
Yep, I'd appreciate that.
All right. Question, with the updates and improvements to volleyball and football, will the layout workflow work different this year in the actual software? So for football and volleyball, 2.0 will be when it starts to look different. So this year, neither one of the softwares will look different. We will be beta testing football in the fall with the CMS2 product. So just keep an eye on that. We're going to have a beta group for that, but the current product offerings will look exactly the same until we roll out so the one would be a terrible idea is to roll it out without a beta test, and we're going to have a lot of issues. So we don't want to do that. All right. Will the new CMS be a cleaner look in the seasons tab? By this, I'm asking about not showing up or showing the NCAA season options.
Yeah, we haven't quite finalized how the seasons are going to look yet, how that game day tab will look, but it will be a cleaner look no matter what.
Question about volleyball. In volleyball, want to know why there's not visible reception or reception error is visible as a stat. If you click on the categories, the individual, it ranks them in order, but it does not show the stat. It also occurs with service errors. Is there a way to make all stats recorded available?
That might be something, if you can email us on that one and we'll look into it. We can look into it on that one.
Yeah, Randy, go ahead and email Josh on that one. He can get into that. All right. Let's see. And Josh's email is in the chat. Will there be an easier way to offer live stats when NAIA schools hosting non-NAIA schools in baseball and softball?
That one's a little tough. The school would have to be in our system to be able to live stat it. Yeah. So I mean, there might be a chance they're in the system, but doubtful. If it's a non, but yeah, that school would have to be in there.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up with that. When we're talking about you're statting 2 schools that are not Presto clients, I mean, I think in previous times you could use DAC stats or Stat Crew to stat whatever you wanted because you paid for the product. With this being a web-based solution, you know, if you're not paying for that software, it's not on Presto to make sure that 2 non-NAIA schools can get that. So I would always recommend, and I have this year, that you have someone from one of those schools provide you either access, if they have Presto account, provide you access, give you RPI access, or if they're a non-Presto user, use whatever they're using. All right. And then there's more questions about hosting summer tournaments and things like that. I think that could be a different conversation down the road, but maybe some sort of add-on tool, but nothing that we have identified at this point. Question about from a football coach that has asked about defensive pass efficiency. That is not something that we have gotten into. That isn't a. I'm not 100% sure on that one. Have you guys looked into that at all? That's something that you could definitely email Josh about. I think that might be the easiest way to do that and kind of get into that.
Is that an individual defensive back statistic, or is that an overall team statistic cumulative with the defensive backs?
Isaac, do you want to go ahead and unmute and give us a little bit more detail on your question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so it's a team cumulative statistic. I believe when we put it through Stat Crew, it'll show that up, but I just didn't know if that was something that was going to be added to Presto or not.
We're definitely looking to expand the statistics that we're offering in the 2.0 football platform. So I'll note this, and I know we have the data, so it's just a matter of rendering the logic on the box score and team stats.
Ed was clarifying his question about hosting a non-NAIA school in baseball and softball. So an NAIA school hosting a non-NAIA school and using Presto. Ed, do you want to unmute? I'm not exactly sure what the issue is that you're referencing, but let's make sure we're all clear on it.
Yeah, for example, last season we hosted Lane of Division II in softball. We played a doubleheader. The stats eventually got into the system after the games were completed, but I didn't see a way to offer live stats. Is there a way for us to get Lane into the system before the day of the doubleheader? Even though they may be a non-Presto school?
Yeah, there is. We would have to add in the RPI to the system. That's something you probably want to email support and get it added in. And then, you can go from there and stat it. There might be a chance on some sports that you would also have to enter the roster. So you have to adjust for that too. So you might also have to have a roster handy when the RPI and the sports made.
And they should probably have a TRO and a TRX that you can upload.
Right.
That's my guess.
Right. Yeah.
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 So I think maybe best practice on that, just so we're all on the same page, is if you identify those on your schedules, email support as soon as you see it. And then that way you're not waiting until like the day before and you're worried. We don't want that to happen. So
Yeah, it takes a few minutes to make an RPI and get it set up and put in the roster and stuff. So yeah, as much time as possible is best.
it's a question about, is there a way to get the RPI list from non-NCAA schools?
So we have a lot of RPIs in our system.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's so even though you might have the RPI for a non-NAIA school, you won't have access to it. So for example, in Ed's case, when you email support to say, hey, I have them coming in, we'll have to give him temporary access to that RPI also to be able to stat it. So even though you'll have a list of all these RPIs, it doesn't mean you have permissions to be able to even see them. So that's another thing you would have to email support to say, hey, do you already have this school? If not, can we add it?
I think one thing that would be really helpful is to have if there's a Google Drive list of all the NAIA RPIs. And the reason I ask for that is that outside of your own school, I know if I'm adding RPI access for a national championship tournament, I see 3 Bethels and I see 2 Columbias, but it doesn't have the identifier of what their state is. So I have no idea. Then I have to go to the RPI code and figure out which that is. So if we could either get that on that list of what states those are in, if they're the same name, or B, just have a list of the RPIs.
Yeah, I could probably I could probably do that. Yeah.
There is a link in the chat if this is the official RPI code list. Are you guys are using a different, the NCAA RPI is not the same as the Presto RPI, correct?
It is not.
Okay.
It is not. Yeah. It's actually nice to see this list. I mean, this is something that honestly I wouldn't mind importing into our system. But yeah, it's we use a different system than they do.
All right. Let's see. Further questions, because that list actually does include NAIA schools in there as well. Might be worth taking a look at some point, just if we can get both of those the same. Okay. If anyone has any further questions, unmute, please. We want to make sure you guys get as much out of this as you can.
Brad, I just noted something there in the chat. The RPI codes that the NAI used are the same ones that DAC stats used. So if there's a way that we could get those possibly, that is the ones that Presto uses.
That's
So
good to know.
it may be useful to have.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Okay. Question about dead ball rebounds. If there's a way to streamline this on free throws, if you can automate the dead ball rebound being credited.
That's probably another one you want to email in, and then we can take a look at it.
Yeah, so Preston, go ahead and email that one in.
Yeah, email myself and Zaid. Well, you can just email myself, me, and then I'll share it with Zaid, and we'll go over it.
Perfect. Further questions? Feel free to unmute.
Who's the best contact when there's like glitches in the system that we come across, depending upon the sport?
So normally I would say support. But as we go through this restructure with support, you're more than welcome to email myself and Zaid and support at the same time, and we'll take a look at it. Just till we can get the process down. You're more than welcome to email us, and then we'll have a look.
And if you do have cases that you're submitting to support, put NAIA in like the subject line, because what we're doing right now, again, it's a little manual, but that allows us to identify you as an NAIA school, and we'll be able to address your issue faster.
Yeah, and we did roll that out in the spring, and actually I heard some feedback that things had gotten a lot faster. So I'm hopeful that that was the case across the board. But please make sure you do that. They are looking for that, as you can hear.
Yep.
Further questions?
Hey, Brad, I got a question.
Yeah.
Is there going to be any addition of cards into the volleyball stat system?
That's definitely something that we want to make sure we have everything captured. If you can send a list of those over to Josh and Zaid, as far as what we need to have included, or especially what's missing. I'll be honest, I can't tell you off the top of my head what's missing, but I want to make sure those get captured.
Okay, yeah, we'll do.
We do have a backlog item prepared for that already, but it would be helpful to get a complete understanding of what's missing.
Question about web. Website is still on SCD Help CMS, but need a couple updates made that he can't change. How do I get those made?
That's another one. If David could email me those, also tag support on that too with the NAIA in the header, and then we can take a look at those.
Dave Tolley, always good to start trouble. Thank you, Dave.
Hey, he's a cool guy.
Further questions? I want to thank Presto again, but I want to thank all of you guys for being forthcoming on this. This is an opportunity for you guys to really just have a chance to explain directly to Presto what your issues have been, how things have been going on your campus, and what really needs to be fixed. I can tell you from my meetings with them that there is a great amount of interest and effort being put forth, especially since April, especially since Marilyn has started, to really get the ball rolling and fix these issues. It is really important that we have a strong partnership with you, our SIDs. You guys are the ones who were leading the way. You guys are the ones that our ADs were listening to when they talked to Marilyn at our national convention. And I will tell you, it was not easy conversations that she was having. I saw it firsthand, but I think it says a lot that we are having these types of meetings for 2 hours and taking this feedback and running with it. There's still a long way to go. We know that. I've got a lot of confidence in Marilyn to get this done, a lot of confidence in Zaid and Josh. We meet weekly. So if you guys see things that we need to tackle that are big issues, please let me know. If they're smaller in scale, more tactical, we're going to talk through as a board with your NAIA-SIDA board on where those types of things should go when we need a product update in terms of a stat product or something like that. Additional stat added, where those need to go, because we want to help triage. I don't want to slow process down on the bigger ticket items that we need to have done, because there are only so many resources, but we're going to get it done, and we're working hard for it.
Brad,
Marilyn, any final? Yeah, Nick.
Hey, just want to say, part of the, I don't want to, Tommy might not be leading the committee anymore, but our stat committee is probably a good place for us to take a bigger role in that, at least in collecting that information as we go. If we can create that in some official capacity as part of our committee's role, that would probably be helpful to the board to know that, and then figure that out. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, I couldn't agree more. That's something that we've talked about, and I wanted to wait until after we have our officer elections to know who is going to be running that committee, and then we will definitely be including you guys a lot. You guys are critical in that piece. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude today. Marilyn, any final words?
Well, if you're gonna be in Vegas, I'd like to say hi and meet you face to face. So I'll be out there, and a lot of the team will be out there. So please make sure to stop by, and we'll be roaming around as well. And again, would love to meet a lot of you face to face.
Marilyn's going to be, she's going to have 10 minutes at our NAIA-SIDA Divisional Day to take any further questions or comments, but want to thank her and her team for her time. We do have this recorded. I will post this next week. So we will have this online for everyone's viewing pleasure before we head out to Vegas. So I can't wait to see you guys in Vegas. This is the kind of the first step toward Divisional Day. I want to thank Donnie Smith for all the work he's doing on programming. It's going to be outstanding. And the rest of you, thank you for your time. We'll see you all here in about a week.